Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 134. Let's talk about alcohol. Just because a question came up inside the community during the week from Sue. I actually remember who asked the question this time. Sue, so many things. I honestly, I don't know, 50 check-ins a week. Answer about 30 questions a week. Have God knows how many conversations with other people on top of that. It's a lot to remember. Sue asked a question about your weight after alcohol. Now, I have probably discussed this at some point, but let's just make this episode specifically about this because it'll be a good one to refer people back to in the future. So, alcohol does indeed affect your weight. What it does not affect in the context of a calorie deficit, right? So if you're trying to lose weight, if you're in a calorie deficit, if you know you are in a calorie deficit and consuming less calories than you are burning, alcohol is affecting your weight, but it's not affecting your body fat. So keep in mind that when people often combine the two, so it's never, people just think of their weight being their weight, right? Oh, my weight's went up. Yeah, your weight has went up. But your weight is not just comprised of body fat. Body fat is only one very minor component. The reason I say it's a very minor component of your weight, yes, it could be a large component of your weight if you have 100 pounds to lose, right? But in terms of what you're seeing on the scales every day, the movement of body fat is a drop in the ocean compared to the weight that can change from food weight, digestive weight, waist weight, water weight. You can gain 5 pounds of water weight easily. You can gain 5 pounds of food weight easily. People often forget the food weight thing. Like I say this all the time, especially with the people I work with, because we're tracking, because we know how many grams of this and how many grams of that was in that dinner. You can look at a dinner and say, right, that was an 800 gram dinner. If I stand on the scales right now, and I am 70 kilos, and I eat my 800 gram dinner, 0.8 of a kilo, and I go step on the scales again, I would expect to be 70.8 kilos. Obviously, you don't eat then step on the scales, and your body will break that down and digest it, but the fact still remains that if you eat something that weighs a lot, it's going to affect your weight. So, food weight, water weight, digestive weight, waist weight, these things are massive in terms of, in comparison to body fat. I can't remember the numbers, don't have a calculator next to me, but if you're in a calorie deficit, if you're eating 500 calories less per day, if you're losing a pound a week, you're losing something like 80 grams of body fat per day. Go get a set of scales and weigh out 80 grams of banana, I think would be quite a good comparison for what body fat is as a tissue. I think a banana would be quite good. Weigh out 80 grams of banana, right? That's the amount of body fat that you're losing every day. I'm actually going to tap this into my phone because that's going to make a really good visual on an Instagram reel. And it's not 80 grams. It's 65 grams. Well, 64. But weigh out 65 grams. There's 454 grams in a pound of body fat. 64 grams. Put that on the kitchen scale and take a look at it, right? That's how much body fat you are losing every single day. Remember, the scales can't show you it every single day. We'll get to why. But that's how much you are 100% losing every single day that you're in a calorie deficit. It's happening. It doesn't matter if you know it or not. It doesn't matter if you see it or not. It doesn't matter if you feel it. It doesn't matter if it shows up on the scales. You're never going to step on the scales and see them come down by 64 grams per day because there is a shit ton, a metric shit ton, look it up, of other stuff going on that will hide it from you. Right? If there was absolutely no noise in your body from water weight, digestive weight, hormones, your menstrual cycle, sleep, hydration, all of these things, right? If none of that existed, then yes, every day that you stepped on the scales, you would see your weight come down by a lovely 65 grams. And this is where the real challenge is. This is where the real difficulty is. Trusting the process. You have to trust the science. You have to trust that your human body is the same as every other human body on this planet. And you have gained weight the same way as every other human body on this planet through the overconsumption of calories. And that you're going to lose weight the same way as every other human body on this planet through the underconsumption of calories. So that's happening every day. You just don't get to see it as often as you would like to, because you have all this other stuff going on, right? Water weight's going up and down every day, food weight's going up and down every day, digestive weight's going up and down every day. The amount of sleep you do or don't get affects our weight and the weight that will be in the morning, our hydration levels, what stage of your cycle you're at, what you're holding on to, bloating, all of that stuff, whether you've been to the loo or you've not gone for a couple of days, all of that stuff can add up to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pounds easily. So what chance has a tiny little 64 grams of banana got of coming through on the scales and letting you know that you lost that today? No chance. Just to give you a visual, if I ever have to explain this to someone when I'm doing a check-in, I'll open up Paint on my PC, good old Paint, and I'll draw like a line graph type thing, and I'll draw this kind of this straight, slowly slanting diagonal line, and say that's your body fat. And then I'll put a line over the top of it in a different colour, and I'll show it spiking up and down. So the body fat's coming down consistently every single day, but then the other one is bouncing up, down, spiking up and down all the time. And then every now and again, it falls down and touches the body fat line. And those are the days that you get to see your new lows. So anyway, what's this got to do with alcohol? So the question that Sue asked was, why is it that when I drink alcohol at the weekend, my weight rockets up for the rest of the week? And it's a great question, because if you are a habitual alcohol drinker, meaning, if you're counting down the days till Friday till you have that bottle of wine, or your Saturday night when you have your 5 or 6 G&Ts, like whatever your thing is, whatever your regular pattern is, I would say that people who regularly drink alcohol are more likely to give up on weight loss than people who don't. Purely because it creates a lot of frustration. So here is what happens, right? So let's say you went to the pub with your friends, you sat down, and let's just say you've got a bottle of wine between you, right? You and a friend, bottle of wine. You're sitting having a glass. Everything's fine. And then you pour your second glass, and then you order your second bottle. Because a bottle of wine doesn't go far between two people, does it? And your second bottle comes, and you're chatting away, and you move on to your third glass. Now, as you're starting to drink your third glass, you need the toilet. So off you go do a pee, you come back, you finish off that glass, and you need to pee again. So you go to the toilet while your friend's ordering the third bottle. Then you come back, and then you get partway through your next glass, and you need to pee again. So If you're Scottish, then I don't know what, there'll be a lot of colloquialisms for this, but up here we would call this breaking the seal. Once upon a time, when I would go to a pub, you could stand and have 2 or 3 pints, and then you would go, nope, toilet, that's it. And once you go for that first pee, that's what we call breaking the seal. And once the seal's broken, you are basically at the toilet after every pint. And there's a scientific reason, there's a biological reason for this. So you have something called ADH. This is your antidiuretic hormone, however you pronounce it where you come from. Diuretic, I call it diuretic. Your antidiuretic hormone. A diuretic is something that dehydrates us, right? And the hormone that we have, so it opposes dehydration. So it's a hormone that regulates the amount of water that your body retains. So its job is to keep your hydration levels balanced. It's to stop you from dehydrating. Anti-dehydration, antidiuretic. Now, alcohol has this unfortunate effect where it switches off this hormone or suppresses it to the point where it switches off. So, and this will depend, how quickly it happens will depend on like how you're drinking. If you're drinking spirits, strong shot spirits, they'll switch it off quicker because it's the alcohol that does it, right? It's not beer is not entirely alcohol. Wine is not entirely alcohol. But the stronger the drink, the quicker it's going to switch off. So yeah, if you're drinking pints, but they're shandies, it's going to be a much slower process. If you're drinking pints, it will happen quicker. If you're drinking wine, higher in alcohol than pints, it's going to be a bit quicker. And if you're drinking spirits, especially if you're hardcore and you drink these things neat or like with whiskey with a dash of water, it's going to switch off at its fastest. So alcohol suppresses that. Now, when that's suppressed, your body has now lost the ability to judge its hydration levels, right? It's blind. It doesn't know what's going on. That's went to sleep now. So what happens is your body starts to let go of any water that it was holding on to. And now your body is gradually dehydrating every time you go to the toilet. So there's two things going on, right? Your body is starting to empty itself of water because that hormone is no longer there to say we need to keep a hold of this because this is going to stop us from dehydrating. And the second effect is what you're drinking is going straight through you. So it's going into your stomach, passes through your stomach very quickly because it's a fluid, it's not having to be digested. Alcohol's being extracted and released into your bloodstream, and the rest is being passed straight through all the way to the bladder. And this is why you go to the toilet more often. Because it's not just the drinks you're drinking that are passing straight through. It's also all the retained fluid that you were holding on to is also passing through. So it's like you're drinking double the amount and you're having to go to the toilet much more frequently. So this is the reason for it. Now, obviously what happens next is a fucking stinking hangover, right? Hangovers are mostly dehydration, severe dehydration. Now if you think about the amount of things in life that can kill us, not like external circumstances, not car crashes or things like that, but if we think about the things that we need, right? Air, heat, food, water. If we think of it, I don't know, it's not elemental, that's not the right thing to say, but these are the kind of fundamental things, right? We know that if we don't get air, we will die extremely quickly. We know that if we don't get water, we can only last, I don't know what it is, a few days. It's not a lot. Food's a bit different because your body can switch over and run on body fat. You could probably stay alive for months without food, but you would eventually die. And of course, heat, cold exposure. So if we think about, I don't know, natural waste, anyway, very morbid, but you get the point. So our body does not like the absence of these things. Now, with hydration, when you drink alcohol, you throw your body into a panic. It freaks out because you're at risk of death. Now, I know that sounds dramatic. Your body doesn't know that you're in the pub having a few drinks with your mates, right? It doesn't register that. It doesn't look out your eyes and say, oh, it's okay, they're just in the pub. They're not, on a desert island with no access to fresh water. It doesn't. All it knows is you have massively dehydrated yourself, and now your body has to protect you from that. Like, it doesn't know that you're going to wake up at home the next day and start chugging milk and coffee and water and anything you can get your hands on to cure your parched mouth. It doesn't know that. All it knows is you place your body into a state where it could potentially die, and now it needs to do something about that. So, Saturday night, you've got drunk. Sunday, you've had your hangover. Sunday, you've woken up disgustingly dehydrated. Excessively dehydrated. Panic stations for your body. And so what happens next is your body overcompensates. So everything that you drink is now being retained because your body's like, right, thank God we are getting fluids, but that dehydration thing might happen again. So let's not go back to normal. Let's not take them back to normal hydration levels. Let's not let much of this pass through. We're going to hold on to all of this. Not all of it, but the majority of it. We're going to hold on to much more water than usual. So this is what I describe as the hydration rebound. So if I could show you this in someone's weight. If someone goes out on a Saturday night and doesn't eat too much, because that kind of throws it off. But if somebody goes out on a Saturday night, again, coming back to the 70 kilo things, let's say you were 70 kilos on Saturday morning, and you go out on Saturday night, have your drinks, and you wake up on Sunday, and you're 76 kilos, because 4 kilos of water weight has just vanished. That's what I call a false low. So if I'm working with people, and they see a new low, and you can read this pattern, they'll say, their weight was normal Friday, Saturday, very low on the Sunday, unusually low compared to the rest. And then Monday, it rebounds. So Saturday, 70 kilos, Sunday, 76 kilos, Monday, 84 kilos. No, sorry. 74 kilos. So it's jumped up by 8 kilos from the day before. And that's all that is your body getting back to baseline with hydration, so removing that 4 kilogram drop, and then holding on to more, so adding 4 kilos on. I'm just making these numbers up, by the way. It won't look exactly like this, but the pattern will. Normal Saturday, very low Sunday, massive rebound Monday. And when I see that in someone's weight, when I'm doing a check-in, I can often say, okay, so you probably had a drink, if they don't mention it, but they've maybe noted that as a new low, and they think they're down 5 kilos that fortnight, and I'll go, you didn't have a drink on that Saturday night, did you? And they're like, oh yeah, I did. Quite a big drink, actually. I went, okay, well, we're not going to count that as a new low, because that's a dehydrated low. That's not a comparison, and it's not fat loss, so we don't count that one. Just keep that in mind, right? It'll save you from a lot of disappointment. Oh, very noisy truck. And then, so Monday we're 74 kilos, Tuesday we're 73.5, Wednesday we're 73, Thursday we're 71, Friday we're 70, Saturday we're 70. And this is where people get frustrated because, and remember what I said, if that person has been in a calorie deficit that whole week, they have been losing that 64 grams every single day. They're losing a pound a week, but their water weight is pissing about. So we've went from Saturday to Saturday, Saturday 70 kilos, following Saturday 70 kilos. The person now thinks that they're making no progress. But it's Saturday again, Saturday night. This is when we go to the pub and we sit down with a friend and we order the bottles of wine and we do the whole thing again. We wake up on Sunday at whatever I said, 66 or 65 kilos, whatever it was. Wake up on the Monday, we're back up to 74. And this is where people start giving up. Do you know, I have been doing this for so long now that I can tell you the statistics. Most people who cancel their memberships with me do so without a conversation, and it happens on a Monday. Very rarely does anybody cancel on any other day. Like I'll sit down at my desk on a Monday morning, and it'll be like 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, 2, 3, 4 people have cancelled. First thing in the morning, and I know exactly what's happened. The person has had a weekend, not necessarily drinking alcohol. They might have been eating more than they planned. They might have had a bad weekend. They might be annoyed with themselves. They might be at a certain point in their cycle. They might be going through a mental health thing, having some low mood, like whatever it is, but it's always a Monday. Do you know why? Because Monday is the day that everybody's weight will be at its highest point. Not just because of alcohol, but because of the way that we live at the weekends. And when I say the way we live, I don't mean eating to excess or drinking to excess. We spoke about this before recently. Life is just different at the weekend. You go to bed later. You wake up later. You switch off your alarms. You don't get up at your usual time. You don't weigh yourself at your usual time. You don't eat at your usual times. Maybe you have a very late dinner because you can stay up later. All of these things affect your weight. Maybe you get a Chinese at the weekend. Chinese, ridiculously high in sodium, which will have a massive effect on your body retaining fluid. Or maybe you get a big Domino's pizza or whatever it is, and then, you step on the scales and you're super frustrated. All your body's doing is reacting to the changes. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not being bad. It's not stopped working. And this is why people give up. And it's why education is so ridiculously important. And it's the reason that when people come to work with me inside the Monroe Method, like, we don't just dive into fat loss ASAP. It's not day one, right, here's what you're doing, go start losing weight. But don't do that, because that's how people fail. It's a week, 5 and a bit days of education. 5 days of education, really. 5 days of education. Because the stuff that you think you know about your body, the stuff that you think you know about how weight loss works and weight gain works and all of that, the things you think you know about weight fluctuations and gains and maintains and all of this stuff, it's all wrong. And it's the reason that you give up. It's the reason that you're still struggling with your weight. People don't give up because of something that's happening. They give up because they have a lack of understanding of what's happening. Write that one down. That's a good one. If you understand, now you understand how alcohol works. Now you understand, just to recap it very quickly, that when you drink alcohol, the alcohol part of your drink, the ethanol, suppresses your ADH, your anti-diuretic hormone, your anti-dehydration hormone, if that's easier to remember. And it empties out your body of fluids, and you wake up in the morning severely hydrated, and your body will then compensate for the next 3 to 5 days by holding on to more water. And that's what you're seeing on the scales. And remember, water has got nothing to do with body fat. If you stay on your calorie deficit, even while all that's going on, you're still losing that 64 grams a day. You're still losing that pound a week. The scales have just got no chance of showing you it because of something that you did. And that's not a negative thing. We're not pointing any blame anywhere. It's an explanation. It's an understanding. Like, you wanted to have a drink, fine. Go for it, do what you want, but understand the impact so that the impact doesn't derail you. And this is where things just get so fucking arse backwards, and I try so hard to explain this, where it's like, when you're, think about this, right? I nearly said you are here too. This is what I would say to someone I'm working with, right? I would grab my pound of fat model and I would hold it up to the camera and say, this is what you are here to lose, okay? The only way, the one and only way that you can have an effect on this body fat is to consume less calories than your burn, so your body can say, oh, we've ran out of food calories, we need to tap into our backup. Let's go take some from that pound of body fat. Let's go take 64 grams from it. And we'll use that to make up the 500 calories that we're not getting today. That's it. Nothing else affects that. If you drink alcohol, dehydrate yourself, and your body overcompensates with extra hydration, that's water, right? Water is separate. Water goes up and down every day. That's what it's supposed to do. It's not a part of the thing you're trying to lose. You're not stepping on the scales trying to lose water weight. Losing water weight isn't going to change the size of your belly. Losing water weight isn't going to change the size of your bum. It's not going to change your measurements. That's not the point. It's not water weight. It's not going to make your clothes fit any better. So like I said, this is where it gets arse backwards, because people will take their frustration at water and then they will react to water and take an action that then affects the very thing that they're trying to lose. And it's so ridiculously backwards. I can't think of a good comparison or analogy off the top of my head, but it's like, I don't know. I can't think of a good comparison. But when you react to one thing that then has a direct impact on something you're trying to change, that's when things just get so messed up. You know, your frustration at the scales is misplaced. The scales are only showing you how you're living your life. They're only showing you what your biology is doing. They're showing you what stage of your menstrual cycle you're at, how much sleep you had last night, the composition of the meals that you're eating, the time that you ate those meals, whether you've been to the loo or not. That's mostly what they're showing you. Everything else, you know, all of that's, I'm going to say 90% of what you see on the scales is noise. 10% of it is what your body fat's doing that day. Because body fat moves at a glacial pace. Everything else, you know, your body fat can only come down a little bit every day. Even if you're in an extreme deficit, you're not losing a pound of body fat a day. Whereas you can very easily lose or gain pounds and pounds of food weight, water weight. If you don't go to the toilet that day, that's sitting in your bowels waiting to pass, shall we say. I was going to say drop out. So hopefully that's helped, right? I wanted this one to really try and cement in your mind that the scales are not telling you the whole story. Here's an example, right? If I put £250 a month into a bank account, into a savings account, which I do. If I put £250 a month into a savings account, and I start doing that in January, I do not need to look at that. If I set up a standing order that sends £250 at the end of every month when I get paid, I do not need to go to that bank account to make sure that every month £250 has gone in there. I don't need to look at that. I could not look at that for 12 months. And I could get to Christmas time to go and buy my Christmas presents, I don't know, get to November, make the 11th payment, and there would be £2,750 in there. I know that for a fact. I don't need to check the bank account every day to make sure that's happening. I don't need to check the bank account every day to make sure the level's correct, the balance is correct. I know it's working because that's how it works. If I put this much money in here, then that's how much money I'll have in 3 months' time, 6 months' time. The same is true of your body. Although there are a lot more variables, you might move less, you might move more, you might eat less, you might eat more, but you can know for a fact, let's remove the exactness from it, you can know for a fact that if you put yourself into a calorie deficit in January and you stay in that calorie deficit for a year, you will be dramatically lighter in 12 months' time without stepping on a set of scales. The problem is we want to see our efforts. Like, a lot of people dislike doing things that they didn't really want to do in the first place, which is part of the reason why they gained weight in the first place. They don't want to eat vegetables. They don't want to eat fruit. They don't want to make sure their meals are balanced. They don't want to stop eating when they start to feel full. Like, if they wanted to do those things, they would be doing them. That's part one, right? When you are trying to improve your eating habits, you have to start by doing things that you don't really want to do. Otherwise, you'd already be doing them. But you don't mind doing it if you get rewarded for it, which is where the scales come in. And well, that's a problem. I get it. We want to see the result of our efforts. If we feel like we're putting effort into something, we need to know that it's leading to something. But if we're going to use the scales as a method of tracking that, then we need to understand them. We need to understand how the scales work, how weight fluctuations work, how the biology works, the process of fat loss and fat gain, how your body reacts to things like alcohol, like we've discussed, to food composition, to meal timing, all of these things. Once you have the education and the understanding, which, for example, Slimming World ruins, right? Slimming World will never explain what I've just explained to you. Slimming World will never explain to you how weight fluctuations work, how mealtime, like all that stuff that I've mentioned. They will never explain any of that to you because they want you to stay blind. They want you to stay ignorant. They want you to know that, yeah, if you do this, your weight's going to go up, but all you have to do is get back on plan and it will come down again. Yes, that's like, it's not untrue, but it's not helpful. It's not teaching you anything. It's just telling you to trust and have faith. Whereas I always make sure that people understand the direct outcome of their actions, because when that person goes away and steps on the scales for the next couple of weeks before they come back to me for their next check-in, they need to be able to say, oh, I'm up today, but I know that's because the little one wasn't sleeping great last night, and I was up at midnight and I was up at 3 a.m. I've had disrupted sleep. My body's not had time to go through its usual nighttime cycle, its nighttime routine, all the things it does for my body, and so I have woken up a little bit heavier today. Forget about it and move on. Crack on with your day, do the things that lead to fat loss, lose your 64 grams, rinse and repeat. Next day. Oh, it's up again today. Well, that's because we had a Chinese last night. High salt, high carb, weight a little bit later than usual. Of course my weight's going to be higher today. 2 days later, oh, a shiny new low. Because they didn't react to any of that stuff, because they're so educated now and so relaxed about the scales. Anyway, hope this little rambling has been helpful. I think I'll direct people to this one, not just if they drink alcohol and they want to understand that, but also they just want to learn about weight fluctuations and how the body reacts. And yeah, I think the thing to leave you with, oh yeah, I didn't explain this right, but with the alcohol thing, you know how I said, you know, you'll have a drink on the Saturday night and you'll be lighter on the Sunday. Well, the thing that would counteract that is if you went to the pub and had your drinks, fine. But if you stopped and got a kebab and chips and cheese on the way home, then the dehydration weight is going to be offset by the food weight. So yeah, you've lost 4 kilos of water, but you went and ate, you know, a kebab and a bunch of chips and cheese. You've now gained a couple of kilos of food weight, water weight being retained with the food that you've eaten, etc., etc. So if you go out and just drink and don't eat anything, if you're one of those people, you'll know what I'm talking about with the dehydrated weights. If you're someone who goes out and eats and then always stops and grabs something on the way home, maybe not so much. Anyway, enough from me. Until next time.